A prayer introduction.
Prayer. You can see who's in control here. Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, Friend, beloved God, Great Masters, Jesus Christ, Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Sri Yukteswar, beloved Guru, Paramhansa Yogananda Ji, saints of all religions, we humbly bow to you all. Beloved Master, beloved Swamiji, we thank you for these wonderful teachings, for the clarity of expression with which you have given them to us. We thank you for being channels of God to bring such love, light, and joy into the world. Om. Peace. Amen. Please be seated.
Most of you know Nayaswamis Jyotish and Devi, Spiritual Directors of Ananda Worldwide. Last night, a few of us were here, you were talking about magnetism, and earlier we were talking about harmony, and I was thinking as you were in that prayer with these teachings that Master and Swami have brought to all of us, that was a great example of that harmony and the magnetism that you bring for all of us, to inspire all of us, to be inspiring. I can't imagine how much it takes for you to do all of the travel that you do, but all over the world, as many of us have known and experienced them in so many countries. But to take these teachings of Master, of Swami Kriyananda, through Swami Kriyananda, to inspire us, to show us just how great it can be to be this kind of a devotee of an avatar. And as many expressions as there are here in this room as around the world, you guys talk to that so often. And tonight we just get to hear one slice about the creativity part of being a channel for these teachings. And I find that very inspiring personally. And I hope you all do too. And so I'm looking forward to tonight.
Birds sing of freedom as they soar lightly on the air. So may our hearts soar high above all curbs and cares. Mother, we thank you, your joy shines in everything. Open these channels that the world once more may sing.
Trees standing firm hold the secret of inner power. Give us when tested strength to endure.
Mother, we thank you, your joy shines in everything. Open these channels that the world once more may sing. Stars send a message of light through eternity. Lord, when in darkness your radiance we see. Mother, we thank you, your joy shines in everything. Open these channels that the world once more may sing. Flowers so soft and fragile stay fragrant though pressed to the ground. May we thus learn forbearance, for in kindness love is found. Mother, we thank you, your joy shines in everything. Open these channels that the world once more may sing.
Mountains remote and still, hint at higher worlds unseen. So may our lives be soaring and serene.
Mother, we thank you, your joy shines
seek passage unhindered by rock or tree. So may our lives flow steadfast toward the sea.
Mother, we thank you, your joy shines in everything. Open these channels that the world once more may sing. Mother, we thank you, your joy shines in everything. Open these channels that the world once more may sing.
Lord Most High, our Heavenly Father, all our lives we dedicate to Thee. All our labors, all our joys and woes, all our pleasure, all our melody.
Make us each a channel of thy peace. When in darkness, guide us from above. Where there's sorrow, may we sow thy joy. Where there's hatred, may we share thy love. O Signore mio altissimo, la mia vita dedico a te, le fatiche, gioia e dolor, il piacere e la melodia. Fammi mezzo della pace tua, quando è buio, guidami dal cielo, dove offesa io porti perdono, dove l'odio io porti l'amor.
Well, thank you for the music. That was, as always, a perfectly appropriate song, especially the second one. I'm sure most of you recognize that that's kind of a musical rendition of the prayer of St. Francis that begins, Lord, make me an instrument of thy peace. Tonight we're going to talk about how to be an instrument of peace, or more broadly, how to be a channel. And it's a very interesting, very important subject because it really has so many different facets to it. So when we act as a channel, the first thing that we have to pay attention to is what are we acting as a channel for? Because we can act as a channel. Think of the television stations. All of them are transmitting something, some programming. Some, maybe PBS is transmitting something beautiful, and others are transmitting something hateful or violent or ugly. And so just being a channel for something is not really certainly not the end of the story. But there are two parts, how to be a good channel and what to channel. So let's start with the first, because it's by far the most important. So how do we be a channel for peace, an instrument of thy peace, or a channel for love, or a channel for joy, or a channel for any of these great eternal qualities? The first thing to recognize is that they're not our qualities. These are ever-existing qualities. So in the Indian scriptures and Indian teachings, and as we have it, God manifests with 8 different kind of vibrations. Just as we see sunlight, and if you take a prism and you hold that up, then that sunlight splits into 7 different vibrations. The prism splits it, and those 7 different vibrations are the colors of the rainbow. So one could say that God's consciousness, as it is expressed into the world, is split into 8 different vibrations. Peace is one, calmness is one, wisdom, love, joy, light, sound, power. But the point here is that these vibrations are not ours. We don't produce them. They're eternally here. We don't produce these vibrations any more than the sunlight that is produced by our consciousness. On the other hand, we can be a channel. Say in a dark room, we can open a window or we can put in a skylight. And so by our efforts, we can help manifest one of those vibrations to come in. But it's very important that we understand that we are not the creator. We aren't the creator even of our own ideas. Isn't that interesting? Master says in one of his writings, in Autobiography of a Yogi, as I look out, most of you are members of the congregation here. If anyone isn't, we tend to slip into 2 things that we'll say. We call Paramhansa Yogananda Master, and we call Swami Kriyananda Swami or Swamiji. And so without having to dance around the terminology, we'll just slip into that. So if we say Master, it means Paramhansa Yogananda. So Master in the autobiography said that very interesting phrase, thoughts are universally, not individually rooted. And the meaning, the interpretation of that is even when we think that we're creating a thought, we aren't really creating it. We're simply tuning into it. He said that our minds act much more like radio stations or radios. He probably would have used television more or the internet, but we don't create the content. We receive the content, and according to how finely attuned we are to that content, if it's full of static, we don't hear it very clearly, nor can we express it very clearly. So the first part of how to be a channel is to recognize and understand that we ourselves are not creating the content that we want to channel. Frankly, I think that's a pretty good arrangement that God created, because some of the content that we tend to create, some of the distortions that we tend to create on our own, are not worth channeling to the world, sending out those vibrations. But how do we tune in better? Well, first of all, and most importantly, in our path, is meditation. It isn't particular to any path. Meditation or tuning in is a part of, first of all, of course, all religions have some degree of prayer, some degree of trying to attune oneself to divine consciousness. There's a great saint, Ananda Ma, and someone asked her one time, when people pray to you, do you know that they're praying to you? I found this really helpful, because sometimes when we pray, we don't really know, is it having any effect? If God is omnipresent, why does God need our prayers in order to help this person? All of those thoughts can rattle around. So a person asked Ma, when people pray to you, do you know? And she said, it's like this. I look out and I see a crowd of people. And then if somebody is praying to me or directing their thoughts to me, it's as if they have turned a spotlight in my direction, and I see that spotlight. So it's our consciousness connecting to the divine that creates a kind of a circuit. And once we've created that circuit, once we're beginning to receive something, then we have something of the divine that is worth channeling, worth being a channel for. And so meditation is essentially turning the spotlight of our minds as calmly and as clearly as possible to the divine source. And it can be really any type of meditation. We have a particular branch of meditation, Kriya Yoga, a whole body of teachings, and they are wonderful teachings. For those of us who are in tune with them, they are the most wonderful teachings, life-changing teachings that we've ever had. But many, many other people have different ways of tuning in. As long as there is the attempt to tune in, then something is going to happen. You're going to be receiving something. But the more deeply, the more clearly you can do that, the more powerfully, the calmer your mind can be. In our teachings of meditation are based on the control of energy. As Yogananda explained it, in this age, we're in an age of energy. Here in Silicon Valley, it's the epicenter of the age of energy. And so in that age of energy, for the attunement of mankind, these great masters have brought teachings that work with energy, not outward energy. Master said that electricity is energy on the animal level. Prana, or subtle energy, is energy on the more subtle level or soul level. In fact, our teachings say that this world is created by the vibration of prana, which is defined as intelligent energy in vibration. And so that intelligent energy and vibration, that's what we're trying to tune into. Well, in our meditation practices, we begin that tuning into it by trying to feel that energy and, if possible, control that energy. And the reason I'm using my hands this way, those of you who practice our teachings, we want to interiorize that energy, because as it spreads out into the world, our consciousness goes outward. But now we're trying to tune in subtly to those deeper elements within us, those eternal, one might say, eternal vibrations of peace and love and joy and so on. So we want to internalize that energy. As we're able to internalize that energy, then the mind becomes calm enough that we can begin to meditate. In fact, Yogananda defined meditation as deep concentration on God or on one of God's qualities. One of these qualities might be concentrating in the forehead on light, or concentrating on the subtle sound of vibration, which in various religions, in the Eastern religions, it's Om, in Christianity and others, it's Amen, the Amen sound. But that's the vibration that prana has, this prana has, that creates the universe. But it doesn't just create the universe, it also creates the thoughts that we receive. So all of those thoughts are eternally in the ether, one might say. And so we don't create them, but by attuning ourselves, we can discover them. All great discoveries don't come from a mental process. They come from a process of deep concentration, which if possible, awakens the intuition. And in the intuitive state, we perceive something. And you can read again and again. Einstein, for instance. Here we're talking about our meditation technique, which is deep concentration. Einstein had deep concentration on light. His friends didn't want to be with him at a cafe because he would sit there and kind of be gazing off into the distance, and they would be trying to engage in conversation. And then finally Einstein would say something about, do you think the vibration of light is this or that? And it got kind of boring for them. But he was boring too, boring deeper and deeper into the realm of what is light. And when he got deep enough in there, the theory of relativity came to him in an intuitive flash. It took him some years to do the mathematics and write it down so that it could be communicated. But the intuition of the only thing that is, one might say, not changing in the universe is the speed of light. And everything else relates to that, the theory of relativity. But as I say, that came from a flash of intuition. But why didn't it come to one of his neighbors sitting there drinking coffee? It wasn't like God sent down a bolt of, like Zeus up in the heaven with a bolt of lightning that came down and happened to hit Einstein in the top of the head. It was that he was concentrated. He was opening his consciousness, not just the mind. The consciousness is the feeling, the intuition, the ability to focus one's mental thoughts. All of that is part of consciousness. And Einstein was tuning that year by year, week by week, into the question of what is light, how does it work, why is it working, what is the central element about light in the universe. And then the answer came as a flash of intuition, as I say. Swami Kriyananda, he tuned into many different things, but one of the things, these two songs that we heard were his. He composed them. They weren't his. They were something that he tuned into. One of his most beautiful songs is Love is a Magician. Thank you. Love is a Magician. So when Swami was writing music, it wasn't like he did a laborious mental process of this note and that note, then the next note. Basically, the song came to him. And then the process that he had to work with was to write that down. Love is a Magician, and it is very touching, very deep. But it came to him one night as he was going to bed. He was laying down, about to go to sleep, and the melody came into his mind. And he said, go away. Don't bother me, I want to sleep. And it wouldn't go away. So, all right. And he got up and went to the piano and kind of plucked it out and then wrote it down. And then he was allowed to go to sleep. And so the point here is that because he had attuned himself to the vibration of creation, the vibration of God as the creator, in terms of music, music came to him. It came into his mind. Scientists were filled with scientists and engineers in this area. As they attune themselves, God will come into their consciousness as solutions to some technical problem, or solutions to some invention that they're trying to do. And so Silicon Valley, the peninsula, is a very special place, really. There aren't obviously, there aren't many places on earth like this because there are so many people here and whole industries, whole populations who, whether they know it or not, are spending most of their mental energy trying to tune in to something, to be a channel for some thought, some idea, some creation. And that power, that magnetism, that's why we have areas like this, and there are others around this country and around the world, where scientists gather together because it's as if there's a special vibration that's going there. Artists, you don't have an artist colony in Silicon Valley. They went down the coast. They went down to Carmel. And there was an artist colony down there because the artists gathered together down there. And that group magnetism attracted the consciousness of God to come into their consciousness so that they were channeling being artists, painters and sculptors, the visual arts. And so if we calm ourselves and if we tune in, but do it on a conscious level, then we can tune in and receive something of value. Now, as I said, the different television stations, they're tuning into some content, but we, as one might say, people who want to see upliftment both for ourselves and for the world, we're trying to tune in to, it's not new. I mean, St. Francis said it for us. Lord, make me a channel of thy peace. Where there's hatred, let me sow love, and so on. So what he was saying is where there's any kind of darkness, any vibration or form that pulls the consciousness down, make me, I'm opening myself, make me a channel for the opposite positive quality, to neutralize the negativity and to produce the positive polar opposite. And friends, this world needs people who want to be channels to produce the polar opposite of the negativity that is running rampant in the world these days. In the Indian scriptures, kind of the devils are called rakshasas. And to some extent, and I don't mean this pointed at any individual, talking about the times we live in, the rakshasas got out of their cage and they're running around loose and they're creating a lot of mischief. And the great saints who fight the rakshasas do so by creating goodness and fighting them with in this case, where there's hatred, let us sow peace or let us sow love. So the first thing to do if we want to be a channel is to tune in as deeply as we possibly can to the source of goodness that we want to channel. And so if we can tune into that, and the more, it isn't something that you can just sit down and get an idea. To be a great scientist, you dedicate your life to thinking in terms of whatever it is you're trying to discover. But Master said that no scientist ever creates anything. They simply discover that which is already there. And so the great scientists, whether they think that they're creating their ideas or not, they aren't really. The great composers, they aren't creating. Many great composers say, I didn't really create anything. I just heard it. It was given to me, and I wrote it down. I know that my particular form that I enjoy doing is painting. And when I'm painting, I try always to start a painting not by thinking about the paint or the process or the form or any of that. I try to think about what is the vibration that I'm trying to transmit. What am I trying to channel? Am I trying to channel expansion? Am I trying to channel calmness or peace or whatever that is? So it starts vibrationally, and then generally, relatively quickly, some visual sense of a vibration will come. Often in meditation, I'll meditate on something if I'm doing a painting. And that vibration comes before the form in which that vibration is going to be expressed. And then actually for me, then a kind of a mental process begins. I have to step in and I have to think, okay, I'm trying to express expansion and calmness together. How do I do that? And then I begin thinking, well, I could do it this way or that way or this or that. And maybe at the end of it, okay, I'm going to have a yogi standing on a cliff in the distance, and it goes into a mountain range, but he's very still, and the mountain range goes on into infinity and out into the sky. So I have to figure out the form of the expression, but the vibration comes before I figure out anything. When I started painting, Swami Kriyananda said to me, very good, you're too mental. You need to develop your intuition, and this will help you. And it's certainly shown to be the truth of that. But this is just particular to me. Everyone sitting here is a channel for something. Every one of us. Whatever you're tuned into, whatever you're trying to, think about or relate to, you're going to end up being a channel for that to come in through you into the world. And then, well, friends, let's be careful about what we want to channel. Let's try to channel high consciousness and purity of thought. So the first step in being a channel is tuning into something, some content. If coming back to being channel 5 on your television set, it's got to have some content, and then it will transmit that content. We'll make sure, if possible, that the content you're transmitting is pure and uplifting and helpful to the world. But then the next step is, in the process of being a channel, what helps us be a good channel? Well, the first thing is we have to get ourselves out of the way. If Einstein is sitting there trying to tune into what is the meaning of light, but his real thoughts are, I wonder how people are looking. I wonder what they think of my hair. I wonder what they think of my mustache. And, I'm not dressed too well. He isn't going to channel anything. The less self-focused we are to get ourselves out of the way completely allows the power of the creativity, the power of God, to flow through us relatively unimpeded. The more of us as the channel, the less can flow through. I've been using television, but we might think of a pipe that's bringing water into your sink. So if that pipe is full of gunk, not much water is going to be able to work its way through. If you're conscious, the gunk here is self-involvement. And if you're trying to be a channel, you might have some content, but if you're too focused on yourself, not very much is going to get through, and certainly not what you want. When you turn on your tap, you want the water. You don't want the pipe that is bringing the water. Isn't that right? So when we act as a channel, we need to act with humility, with purity of heart, with getting ourselves out of the way. And mainly in relating to other people, what that means is that our concentration in working with people, talking with people, even being a friend, should not be on ourselves, but should be on the person or the people that we're working with or interacting with. Working with sounds like, oh, I'm working with you. We're taking a walk and talking. It's not, I'm working with you. We had a wonderful man who's part of our work in Italy, and he's one of those people that knows everybody in the area and people around, and he knows government officials and so on. And I said to him one time, I said, Narya, you're wonderful at connecting with people. He said, I don't ever connect with people. I make friends. And see, that's a beautiful expression of what I'm trying to say, because being a friend, you get out of the way. Connecting with people is, I've got my Rolodex and I'm going through it, and it's a completely different thing. So obviously, what we're trying to do is get ourselves out of the way in the process of being a channel. And the more of ourselves that's in the way, one, the less of a channel we can be, but two, the less purity of expression of what we're trying to channel. Coming back to Channel 5, if you're watching Channel 5, you want to see the content that's being broadcast. You don't want to see the desk and the the control room of Channel 5 flickering in and out. So if you're being a friend with other people, you want to just channel whatever is right for that person at that time without even thinking about it. It shouldn't be a mental process. That as long as your energy is other-directed, it's not self-directed. And when it's other-directed, in whatever is right for that situation, then the power of friendship, which is an aspect of love, power of kindness, compassion, peace, calmness, joy, it will flow through you automatically, because we're surrounded by nothing but those pure vibrations. And to the extent that we get ourselves in the way, we distort those vibrations. And not only do we not have very much power to transmit, what we do transmit is filled with static or filled with gunk, whatever image you want to use, but it's not what we're trying to do. And so tuning into the right source that you want to channel, getting yourselves out of the way in order to not impede the flow of what you're wanting to channel. And then the final thing is, if you're trying to tune into Channel 5, there's got to be some power behind the transmitting station. Devi and I, we helped start a community in San Francisco. We had a 44-room mansion. It's a fun story. So Swami wanted to get something going in the Bay Area. And so he came down and drew a few people with him, including Devi and me and our 3-year-old son at the time. And first we were staying in a little, I think it was a 3-bedroom house in San Francisco. But there were like 15 of us in a 3-bedroom house. Devi and I had a little bedroom, but it had a walk-in closet. So because the walk-in closet was big enough, we had another man living in the walk-in closet. So obviously we had outgrown that place. So Swami said, we need to look for a bigger place. And so we started looking around as you typically would, looking in the ads for places to rent and so on. And somebody came to Swami and said, there's something in San Francisco called the Designer's Showcase. And what happens with the Designer's Showcase is that different designers take a great big house, and then a designer will take one room, and they will do their kind of design in this room. And they said to Swami, I went to the Designer's Showcase, and it was a beautiful house. It had 44 rooms in it. Swami said, let's go see it. So from 3 bedrooms to 44 rooms. And so we went, and Swami got into, past the parlor, which was painted in faux marble, and into the living room, which had still the remnants of Designer's Showcase, so some curtains, and I think a kind of a, Bedouin tent type thing on top. And this 44-room mansion in one of the most expensive areas of San Francisco. And he said, this is it. This is what, and we were thinking, no. And he said, this is it. So then he gathered a group of people together because he was always acting as a channel, and he was opening himself, and he had the energy to pull off what he was trying to create. And so he drew a group of people together to talk about how we could rent this house. And one of the fellows was there. He had his hands in his face in his hands, and he's just going like this. He said, this is madness. This is madness. But lo and behold, we ended up with 44-room mansion, panoramic view of the San Francisco Bay. Right out the window was a view of Alcatraz, and people would come to our corner on 4th of July to watch the fireworks going on out in the bay. But I don't know why I told that story. I have to recover it. But at any rate, when we're trying to do something, there has to be power behind it. And Swami had power behind his thought, power behind his actions. And because of that, whenever the laws that we work with on a physical plane, and Master translated them into the spiritual plane, that where there is a flow of energy, it creates a magnetic field around that. If you take a wire and you put electricity through that wire, it creates a field of energy around that wire. That field of energy is magnetic, and if it's a strong flow, it'll be a magnet that will maybe pick up a tiny little piece of iron filing or something. But the stronger the flow, the stronger that energy field is, and the stronger the magnetism. Well, Swami had an enormously strong flow of energy. When we translate that to our activities and our outlook, he said that one of his most central qualities was his enthusiasm. He was intently enthusiastic about whatever he was doing at the time. When he was a monk at SRF, because he grew up in part in Switzerland, he learned to ski. He loved to ski in his younger days. All the monks in Mount Washington were skiing. They didn't have any idea they wanted to go skiing, but the enthusiasm created a magnetism that all of a sudden they wanted to go skiing. When he was no longer there, nobody went skiing. So for us, the more that we are enthusiastic about something, the more there's a yes-saying principle within us, the more power will flow through whatever we're trying to channel. And so you've got to have the right thing to channel, you've got to get yourself out of the way, and then you've got to get some power or enthusiasm or energy behind what you're trying to channel. And if you do that, you will begin to create a magnetic field for, in this case, uplifting consciousness that will draw others into wanting to relate to that. Because there's always a connection. Everybody in the world, in quantum mechanical terms, is entangled. Well, they're also entangled in a lot of stuff, but and this, interconnected. So we're all entangled with each other. We're all connected with each other. And anything that one of us does, anybody that has any kind of attunement to that vibration or what they're channeling will begin to be more interested in that. Well, here to kind of conclude my portion of this, what we're trying to do with this church, with the temple here, we're trying to tune in to God as expressed through these great teachers, this great lineage that we have, and to offer it to others. When Swamiji first came onto these teachings, he said, he read Autobiography of a Yogi in New York and took virtually the next bus across country to meet Yogananda. He said, in traveling along that route, which took a few days, the thought very powerfully in his mind was, I want to know God, and these teachings are so wonderful. I want to share them with everyone. That's the DNA of Ananda. We want to know God, and we want to share these teachings. So we want to tune in, and then we want to be a channel to share these teachings with others. And as we do that, either individually or even more powerfully, as a group of us do that together, then the power of that magnetism goes through and it flows through us and has the power to uplift consciousness. We, because Devi and I, part of our role is to travel around the world and connect with different people in different places. We see thousands of people that we would never know who have been touched by the teachings expressed by Ananda, by many of the teachers that are, some sitting in this room, by the internet, by the content that goes out, by the, Devi and I write a weekly blog, by all of that going out. It touches people around the world that we never even know, which is a good thing. There's a beautiful story of a man who was very saintly, and God came to him and said, I will give you a boon. And he said, no, I don't want anything. And God said, no, you deserve it, and I insist. And so this saint said, all right, let my shadow, whoever it touches, let there be healing on physical, mental, emotional, spiritual levels just by my shadow touching them. But let me never know. Isn't that beautiful? That kind of deep humility. I only want to be a channel. I don't want even the thought that I am a channel to intrude into the pure flow of your grace that flows to mankind. Well, if we can all be channels, each in our own way, for God's grace to flow through us, then we've got a life well lived.
Good evening, everyone. So I'll share a little bit as well. And I want to first thank you all for joining us tonight. And Jyotish and I are here for the weekend, visiting all our friends in the Palo Alto area, and we've enjoyed very much so far. Recently, we were having a very interesting discussion with a friend of ours. For those of you who know him, Murali Venkatraya from Seattle, about the autobiography of a yogi. And he's a very deep and insightful person. And he pointed out something, a theme in the autobiography that, even though I've read it many, many times, it was something I hadn't seen, I hadn't picked up on. And he was talking about the different levels of miracles that one finds in autobiography of a yogi. And the first one, he said, expressed through the chapter, The Perfume Saint, where Yogananda is a young boy, Mukunda, and he hears about this man who can do miracles, and so he's curious, he goes. And the Perfume Saint, if most of you have read it, I'm sure, he can create a wonderful aroma of a rose or gardenia in a flower that has no fragrance, or in Mukunda's case, he said, just smell your hands now. And his hands smelled like wonderful roses, even though he hadn't been around roses. And even while the young Mukunda, young Yogananda, is there, in the back of his mind, he's thinking, what's the purpose of this? What's the good of this? So he's like a showman. And he's very respectful, as he would be, to this sadhu, this yogi. But he just said, well, thank you very much, but this isn't what I'm looking for. And then, so this is, as we were discussing, Morley said, this is just in a way, it's a manifestation of powers. And once, often in India, when our teachers are giving a presentation, they're asked the question, do you have any powers? Because that's how many people measure spirituality, as if you can manifest things and have powers. And one of the great lights of Ananda, Nayaswami Jaya, was giving a talk to introduce a How to Meditate class series, and after he gave the presentation, someone said, well, do you have any powers? And Jaya, being a man of humility and honesty, said, no, I really don't have any powers. And then he paused, and he said, no, I have one. I have the ability to choose to be happy or not. And this murmur went through the group, and they had the most signups for the How to Meditate course than they've ever had. But just the manifestation of powers is not being a true channel. It's being a channel for something lower. And then as we in this discussion with Murali, then he said, and then there's the Tiger Swami. And you all know the marvelous story where, he's has this reputation of, being able to tame the wildest of beasts, and football-like biceps, very visual. It's a very visual chapter. And so he's put in this kind of sadistic Raja challenges him to conquer this tiger who's known for its ferocity. And as soon as he opens the cage, the tiger springs on him, rips open his right hand, which he tucks in his little loincloth behind him, and using only his left fist, kind of eventually subdues this tiger, puts the chain on him, but the tiger comes back, jumps on his, the story. It's very visual, very powerful. But then what kind of miracle happens? Even though he's bleeding and weakened and attacked, he summons up his willpower. And that's the miracle of that Tiger Swami. And through the use of will, divine will, he is finally able to conquer that. But then, of course, that story goes on. He gets blood poisoning, close to death. And then his guru comes from the Himalayas and says to him, no more conquering tigers. What's the good of that? He said, now we are going to conquer the tigers of darkness in the human soul. So that's the second kind of miracle, where it's the use of channeling power. And we can do that. It's in fact, Master said, every single day, and I try to remember this, I don't succeed, but every single day you should challenge your use of willpower and do something that you didn't think you can do or that you were too lazy to do. But watch your consciousness. When you get to that point, no, willpower, and put out that energy to break through the inertia of self-limiting thoughts. That's the whole secret of spiritual development, is overcoming the inertia of self-limiting thoughts. You know, Swami, probably 12 years before he passed, maybe 15, he gave us a challenge. He said, each of you should strive to become Jivan Muktas in this lifetime. That means freed while living. And when he first said that, I thought, oh my God, Swami, you know, that's setting the bar way too high for me. But we couldn't dismiss it. He wouldn't have said it if he didn't think we had the potential to do it. And then one morning, we were visiting him in India, and he was having breakfast, and he invited us to join him while he was eating. And we were talking about the challenge of being Jivan Muktas, and could we really achieve that? And he was just eating. He had a fork, and I think it was like, I got the sense he was saying, I told you you could do it, let's not talk about it. But then he just held the fork up to his mouth, and he said, finding God is easy. It means longer, deeper meditation and seeing that God is the doer in all things. End of transmission. You know, it continued his breakfast, and that was the end. Longer, deeper meditation and seeing God as the doer in all things. So the Tiger Swami miracle is using the willingness, the enthusiasm, the energy, the commitment to say, I can do whatever I set out to do. And just keep challenging yourself, do things you never thought you could do. And that's the miracle, honestly, of Ananda, is you see people doing things that they never thought they could do. We shared a story recently from some years ago when we were just building the expanding light. Many of you have been there. If you haven't been there, you should visit. And we had planned a big work day. And for a long, long time we were planning, and everyone signed up to do different things. And then the day dawned, and it was pouring rain. But one of the young men who was living there at the time was a very fine young man. He had suffered from cancer as a boy, and his leg was amputated from above the knee. So he had a prosthetic leg. His job was to do roofing tiles on the roof with an artificial leg in the pouring rain. And we said, John, you don't need to. He said, no, I'm going to do this. I said I would do it, and I will do it. He was up on the roof all day long, and at the end of the day, he came down. I've never seen him so happy. He just said, I never thought it was possible that I could do it, but I determined to do it. And Ananda is made of so many miracles like that. When people say, I didn't think I could do it. I didn't think I could raise money to do the repairs on this church, but we're going to try and we're going to do it. And that's what draws the miraculous grace that enables things that seem like miracles to happen. And then we have the third kind of miracle that Murli saw the progression. And that's the story from the life of Lahiri Mahashaya, where he has this disciple, Ramu, who's blind. And Ramu just every day is there fanning his guru. And some of the other disciples said, you're the disciple of an avatar. Why don't you ask him to heal your blindness? You've been this way since birth. And he said, oh, no, I don't want to trouble my guru. But they kept pushing and pushing. So finally, Ramu, you know the story, but one never gets tired of speaking or listening to the stories from Autobiography of a Yogi. And Ramu goes to Lahiri and he said, Master, can you heal my blindness? And Lahiri said, Ramu, why are you asking me? I can't heal your blindness. I have no power. Why do you ask me? And he said, oh no, Master, but the God within you can heal my blindness. And Lahiri said, oh, well, that's a different thing, a different request. And he said, go and take some mud, put it on your eyes, and on the seventh day, when the dawn comes, you will see. And so it was that after 7 days, and did he need the mud? Did he need to wait 7 days? No. It was just how he was developing his faith in God and his trust in God. But that miracle is the true miracle. When we say, I can't do anything, but I can be a channel for something else, for the divine. And we can think that to be a true channel is to transmit inspiration from a source higher than the ego. And that applies to every kind of channeling. Jyotish spoke of art and science and writing, and there's a wonderful book that, in fact, Swami gave it to me shortly before he passed. It's simply called Shakespeare, because I love literature, by Bill Bryson. And he talks about what Shakespeare did. Shakespeare created half of the English language, words that never existed before. No one had ever heard them before. And he wrote them in his plays, and, oh yeah, that means that, and that means that. But he was able, because it was a source higher than the ego. And another time we were with Swami. Swami was a man of incredible refinement and sensitivity and education. And we were listening to a beautiful piece of music by Mozart. And he just paused and he said very quietly, Mozart was such a consummate artist. He never compromised his music, the purity of his music, with showmanship. Showmanship meaning from the ego. And, when you listen to music sensitively, you can hear that difference. There's a book called Conversations with Great Composers, and I believe it was Brahms. Someone was saying, oh, what wonderful music you've written. I haven't written anything, Brahms said. I've only heard it. I've heard it. And that's what being a channel is on any level. We don't create it. And then when you listen to something or see a statue, the Pietà, or a painting. I remember when we saw the Mona Lisa in the Louvre. It's very simple. Many of you have seen it, not a big painting, but why does it have so much power all these years? Because there wasn't ego in the creation of it. It was just simply coming from a higher source. And so how do we do that? I mean, I'm not going to write great music. I'm not going to carve a great statue. I doubt that I'm going to paint a very good painting the way my friend does. But I can try to be, everything I do, feel that it's coming from a source higher than the ego. And that comes from meditation. It comes from deepening your ability to feel that part of yourself that's part of a greater reality. And we all can do that because we are part of a greater reality. That the last few lines of Swami's song, Home is a green hill, but when I'm silent, free of all care, I discover my homes everywhere. Well, that's a metaphor. Home is where you feel at peace, at one with the reality around you. When I'm silent, free of all care, stop your worrying, stop the restless mind, be quiet, go within. You discover your home everywhere. You discover that connection with everything. And so ultimately to work on this concept of being a channel is a pathway to profound spiritual growth. And ultimately for feeling God as the doer in all that you do. And if you think, oh, that's a little too big for me, it's not too big. It's doing it in the best possible way. It doesn't have to be, I'm a channel for God and all that I do is a reflection of that. No, it's the simplicity of a child that can smile. again, Swami's music, if it were not for men's woes, who would smile at a rose, to look at your life and see whatever I've experienced, good, bad, whatever mistakes I've made, it's just not that important. Lose yourself in the forgetfulness of feeling something greater flowing through you. And when you can do that, there just aren't any barriers anymore. There's a oneness and a wonder in all of life. So to begin to see, to be a channel, takes us to the place where we begin to see there's a greater reality all around me. And I've never saw it. And then you try to tune into that greater reality. And through meditation, through attunement to the Guru, through service, through just trying to transcend self-limitations. And the more we try, I remember years ago, the more we try, the more we can succeed. I remember years ago we were driving in a car with Swamiji, and he was talking about, how much this person has changed and how much that person has grown. And I was sitting in the back seat, and this was a rare thing for me because we rarely talked. I mean, we were with Swami a lot. We had that good karma. But I think in all that time, maybe we had, in 44 years we were with him, maybe we had 5 personal conversations with him. We just didn't go there. But Swami was talking about, how all these people have grown. And I was sitting in the back seat, and I just kind of blurted out, I don't know that I've grown at all. And I think he must not have been driving. I think he was in the passenger. He turned around and he said with really force, how can you say that? You're a totally different person than when you came. And boy, I didn't see it, but I don't know if he was just affirming it or what, but don't sell yourself short. And this whole topic of being a channel is a way to realize your full potential, because the more you can get yourself out of the way and allow higher consciousness to flow through you, then you begin to see God everywhere. And then you realize that God is speaking to me in so many ways, through so many people, through a cute little puppy. He's teaching me about joy, through a beautiful little herb that grows by the wayside, the wonders of nature and prana and how to draw it. And then you begin to see everyone around you is your friend. There's a beautiful story from the life of a great saint of India who came to the West, Swami Ramtirtha. And he was a humble man living in India. I'm not sure what city he was from, but he just felt the inspiration to come to America. He had no money. He didn't know anybody, but he was able to get a little money, and he took a ship, landed in Seattle, Washington. And he was just very humbly standing there as the ship was docking in the port of Seattle. And he didn't know what the next step was. But then this man came up to him, a Westerner in a suit, and Ramtirtha was in, saffron robes, dhoti, and, cheddar and so forth. And the man said, do you know anyone in Seattle? And Ramtirtha said, no, sir. And he said, well, do you have any money? No, sir. And he said, well, do you have a friend? And he said, oh, yes, I have one friend. And he said, oh, well, who is he? You, sir. And the man was so charmed. He was a wealthy man, and he sponsored his whole tour of America. That's being a channel, not what you're putting out, but your openness. And I can't tell you how many times it happens for Jyotish and me, where we'll just be somewhere and we'll just meet someone. Another example, this was 2 years ago. We were flying to India, and we were first to Italy. We were in the Frankfurt airport, and we were studying Italian, crash course to learn Italian in the airport before we landed. And this man walked up to us. He was a Black American man, and he said, I was watching you two from across the lobby here. There's something about you. What do you guys do? And we just felt so open to him. We said, well, we teach yoga and meditation. We're disciples of Yogananda. And he said, I kind of do the same thing. He said, I'm a basketball coach. And he works for some very high-level basketball institute in France. Jyotish will remember the name.
Tony Parker.
Yeah, Tony Parker. He was a French-American basketball player that started an institute in France. And so this man was one of the main coaches. And he said, you're trying to help people bring the best out in them. I'm doing the same thing. He said, I teach all levels. Just the man we met in the airport. He said, I teach from professional players to special need kids. And he said, recently I had a class with autistic kids, and they came in, it was like for a period of time, like a month or something, and it was in the gym, but it was also where we would have games, professional games. And so the manager said, don't let the kids sit in the front rows, because those are the seats for the big wigs, the velvet seats. So they can sit anywhere else. So he was working with these autistic kids, and they were getting better. He was encouraging them. But there was one little girl, it's a very moving story, who was severely on the spectrum, and she just would never pick up the ball. She would just stand there. And then it was the last day, and our friend said to the kids, you kids are the real VIPs. If you can make a free throw, you can sit in these reserved seats. And then he realized, and they were cheering, but then he realized, oh, that one little girl, she's not going to be able to do it. She's never even thrown the ball. And he felt bad, so she kept at the end of the line. One by one, the kids went up, they made the basket, and everybody cheered, and they sat in. So this is a man telling us this story in the Frankfurt airport. I want you to keep that we just met. And so then it was this little girl's turn, and every kid made it. They sat in the front row. Last little girl, severe autism on the spectrum. And he said, okay, just hold the ball. Now throw it. She kind of threw it. It just flopped down. He said, okay, now don't throw it. Just hold it and visualize yourself making the basket. Just see yourself making the basket. She kind of threw it just a little better. And he just kept doing that with her. You just see yourself doing it. And he asked all the other kids, see her making the basket. Can you see yourself making the basket? No. Can you see? No. On and on. He didn't lose patience. Finally, he said, now, do you see yourself making the basket? I do. And she threw it. She made the basket. The whole crowd broke into cheers, and she got to sit in the VIP seats. And anyway, this man in the Frankfurt airport tells us this story, and he said, we're doing the same thing. We're trying to show people their own potential. And he walked away. I still to this day, I think he was an angel that just came. But if you're open to God coming to you, if you're open to being a channel for God to flow through you, and that God is coming to you through so many different ways. Ramakrishna was the great saint, was early on in his incarnation. He was just walking, and he looked up at the sky, and he saw a flock of geese. And as they turned one way, they were white. As they turned as a flock in the other way, they were dark. And just seeing that, he fell into ecstasy and couldn't be revived for a long time. How many times do we see birds flying? Do we see them shifting? Do we fall into ecstasy? God's wonder is everywhere. We just he who has eyes to see, let him see. And by trying to share inspiration from a source other than the ego, higher than the ego, it's working with plants. I love plants. I don't have a lot of opportunity to work with them, but just recently outside our front door, I planted a little planter box with herbs. It has brought me so much joy. They're growing and they're happy. And I just, every morning I wake up and the first thing I go outside and look and see how they're doing. But to live in the world, this is a world of wonder. And no matter how dark it may seem, there is always a light that's shining. If we try to share that light with others, if we try to see that light in others, if we try to see God everywhere, then this life, no matter what happens, it becomes a source of joy for us and a source of inspiration for others. I'll just close, so often when we would ride in the car with Swamiji, there would be a certain kind of cloud that would be outside. Just beautiful in the colors, and in my mind, I always called them Swami clouds. And they just were special for him. And then one year he gave everyone a Christmas present, and it was one of his photos with a quote, "The secret of meditation." And it was a photo of Swami clouds. And I thought, oh, thank you, Swami. Now, even though I don't ride in the car with you, I have it right next to my head in our little meditation room. And there's Swami's clouds. He's always traveling with us. So this world is a miraculous place. We can be a channel for others. However humble and inadequate we may feel, we can give a smile to a stranger. We can give a warm hand to someone who's lonely. There's so many things we can do, but we need to transcend this littleness of the self and draw that part of inspiration that is higher than the ego, and know that that part dwells in every living thing, and to awaken that in others, to recognize it in others, and to share that joy together with all whom we meet. So God bless you all.
Thank you so much. You know, the words are wise, the stories are beautiful, all of the thoughts that flow through you, but the energy that's beyond all of that, that has, I would bet, everybody in this room feeling so uplifted right now. You're just, it's not only a great joy, but what a privilege to have you here and to feel your energy and Swamiji flowing through you, and more, I think many of us are feeling when we're in your presence, we are with Swamiji. That wisdom that flows through the heart and just reaches out and grabs us, heart and mind. It's just a gift. I'm sorry we don't have our Samadhi quotes on here, but truly beyond imagination of expectancy. I just can't say enough. I'm certain I'm speaking for many, if not everybody here, when I say that. Somewhere here. Enjoyable beyond imagination of expectancy, Jyotish and Devi. I just wanted to remind everyone that we have a 2-hour meditation tomorrow morning with Jyotish and Devi right here from 7 to 9. And then at 4 o'clock, we're having what truly will be also with Jyotish and Devi, and you can see it forming here. This is so spectacular. Wherever Kamala Devi and Amajoti and others I know who have helped. But there's a theme here, and the theme is fun. Doesn't it look like fun? And fund. So fun and fundraising. Dinner tomorrow. Please come. No matter what the energy is that you can bring and give, starting at 4 o'clock out on the piazza with mocktails, and then proceeding from there. A wonderful meal, music, Jyotish and Devi with us speaking again. And I just feel the inspiration right now that's in this room. And Devi mentioned it, but what it means to be a part of that which will keep giving to so many people. What it means to be a part of not just sharing these teachings, but sharing it in a space where we would be thrilled if Master walked in, or Swamiji walked in, or Jyotish and Devi walk in to say, look at this is for you. So please join us if you can. And once again, thank you so much.
Thank you.